From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Tuesday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Our top story this Tuesday, a man and a woman are recovering in the hospital this morning, both seriously hurt in a crash near Metro Park. It happened just before 10 o'clock last night. The woman was heading east on 1st Avenue North when she drove on the center divider and into oncoming traffic. The Subaru Outback she was driving sideswiped a Ford pickup hauling a trailer. There were 4 people in the pickup and they only received minor injuries from the airbags. 4 people were also in the Subaru. The driver and a man in the front seat were the only ones taken to the hospital. According to the Montana Highway Patrol, alcohol is considered a factor in the crash. In education news, Billings Public Schools have avoided any clusters of COVID-19 so far this year. While it is good news, officials say the reason students can stay distant may result in a loss of funding next year. A cluster is when the virus is passed from one person to at least 3 others. At a school board meeting on Monday, Superintendent Greg Upham said a drop in enrollment may be helping the reduction of COVID spread, but less students could also mean a $365,000 drop in next year's elementary budget. There are almost 480 fewer students enrolled in Billings Public Schools compared to last year. 445 of them are being homeschooled. Upham hopes the Montana School Board Association will convince the legislature to base funding on 2019 enrollment numbers. And later today, the Billings Teachers Union will vote on a new contract offer from the district. Negotiations began almost 9 months ago. Teachers want a 0.5% raise and a one-time essential worker payment of $1,500. Both sides want to agree on a 1-year deal, then readjust post-pandemic. The 12,000 union member will vote on the offer today, and results are expected to be announced on Thursday. Well, now it's time to get a quick check of weather with Ed joining us here on the set. After yesterday's weather, it always makes me wonder what's to come.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of changes that are going to be coming. In the short term, we've got some showers in the area, and the temperature in Billings is bumped up to 40 degrees. Got a little bit of a northwest wind, so it's a mild start. And we'll see readings today in the upper 30s to low 40s. So a little bump in the readings this morning, scattering some showers across the eastern plains. So we'll see more snow. In fact, we've got melting going on right now, and warm enough certainly for those rain showers to develop. We'll see more of that happen off and on throughout the morning and then dry out a bit as we start getting into the afternoon. But after our break today, we'll start to see a transition in the weather tomorrow, and it is cold, record-setting cold consistently once we get from Thursday onward right on into the first part of next week. Temperatures today edging upward quickly. We'll see a little drop for the morning, but temperatures into the low 40s today before we start to see a transition tomorrow. We'll talk more about all of this coming up in a few minutes.
All right, and I know we have to take this serious because even Ed and Brett were geeking out about the upcoming forecast. I was kind of like, calm down, guys, calm down. But serious stuff. I mean, this is it's been a while, so we have to be ready for it. All right, thank you so much, Ed. I'll get back to the news.
Okay, thanks.
Early voting gets underway today in a few states across the country. Millions have already cast a ballot either in person or by mail. But for those undecided voters, President Trump and Democrat Joe Biden will face off on Thursday in Nashville for one final debate. CBS's Nancy Chin tells us how they're preparing.
After a combative first matchup, the Commission on Presidential Debates is making a change for this Thursday's event.
The radical left. Will you shut up, man?
At the start of each segment, both candidates can talk for 2 minutes while the other's microphone is shut off. For the remainder of the 15 minutes, neither will be muted.
Another real great one.
Yesterday at a rally in Arizona, President Trump attacked moderator Kristen Welker, an NBC News journalist.
But I've known her. She's been screaming questions at me for a long time, and she's no good.
President Trump says the change is unfair and that he wants to focus more on foreign policy. The Biden campaign insists Mr. Trump is afraid to talk about his, quote, disastrous COVID response.
All right, who voted today?
Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris didn't let a downpour dampen her mood as she helped kick off early voting in Florida.
They know when we vote, we win.
Local election officials say they saw high turnout throughout the state.
Came in person, just wanted to be sure that the vote counted. Wasn't sure if there'd be any trouble or problems with the mail system.
Long lines are also expected in Wisconsin today with the start of early voting.
Our biggest concern is with COVID-19 right now, making sure that we limit as much congestion at polling places as possible.
Nationwide, more than 31 million people have already cast a ballot, according to a tally by the University of Florida. Nancy Chen, CBS News, Washington.
And Democrats got a win in Pennsylvania. Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled it will allow mail-in ballots received 3 days after Election Day to be counted in that state. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says some progress has been made in coronavirus relief talks with the White House. She met with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin for an hour yesterday, a day before the Speaker's deadline for getting a bill passed in time for the election. If a deal is reached, it would still have to pass the Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has not committed to bringing it to a vote. And if they can't reach a deal, economists worry millions of Americans could lose their homes right after the new year. The Mortgage Bankers Association says 6 million families missed their rent or mortgage payments in September. President Trump recently put a moratorium on evictions for people making less than $99,000 a year. However, that moratorium ends on December 31st. The number of coronavirus cases worldwide has now reached 40 million. In the U.S., new cases are the highest they've been since summer. And as Laura Podesta reports, hospitalizations are up in at least 30 states.
The ICU at the University of Utah Hospital reached beyond full capacity, forcing patients into surge beds.
Long term, this is a very difficult thing for our staff to be able to maintain.
Nationwide, the number of daily new coronavirus cases has reached its highest level since the summer. In Chicago, as restaurants set up outdoor plastic bubbles for diners, city officials sounded the alarm on a second wave.
As we head into the fall and winter months, it is the worst possible time to let our guard down.
Cases in Chicago have risen by more than 50% over the last 2 weeks to more than 500 per day.
And it's coinciding with a worrying increase in hospitalizations.
In Brooklyn, New York, a planned wedding was expected to draw thousands of guests until officials concerned about a super spreader event stepped in.
Representatives now say the Monday night wedding of a prominent member in the Hasidic community will only be open to close family members.
I am heartened by the fact that the message was heard that it's not business as usual.
And while researchers continue working on a vaccine, a new poll shows the percentage of Americans who say they'll likely get it as soon as it's available has dropped more than 10 points since August. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
The survey found 58% of Americans overall said they would get vaccinated as soon as it was available. Now that's down from 69% who said the same thing in mid-August. President Trump signed landmark legislation designed to improve mental health care and suicide prevention for veterans. Montana Senators Jon Tester and Steve Daines both co-sponsored the bill that passed the Senate unanimously. The law now mandates at least one suicide prevention coordinator be in every VA hospital. Telehealth will be expanded, and the VA will conduct research on mental health risk factors. Tester says the bill doesn't solve the veteran suicide crisis overnight, but lays the groundwork for a lasting impact.
What it will do, it'll help show which techniques are working and which techniques we're wasting our time with. Those studies, that tracking is going to be critically important to determine how we appropriate money moving forward.
The Veterans Crisis Line offers support to any veteran struggling with their mental health. Well, we are exactly 2 weeks away from Election Day. To get you ready, MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison is profiling the candidates in the race to become Montana's next governor, starting this morning with Democrat Mike Cooney.
Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney has spent most of his adult life in politics, including a run for the legislature in his hometown of Butte when he was a 21-year-old college student in 1976.
Honestly, I looked about 15 years old when I ran for the legislature. People used to mistake me as the paper boy when I was out knocking on doors.
But he won twice, and then got a job working for U.S. Senator Max Baucus in Washington, D.C., and then later in the senator's field office in Helena. In 1988, Cooney again ran for office and won the first of 3 terms as Montana's Secretary of State. The advent of term limits in Montana prevented him from running for a 4th term, and he ran for governor in 2000, but finished 3rd in a 3-way Democratic primary against 2 other statewide office holders. Since then, he's also been a state senator, a division administrator in the state labor department, and in 2016 appointed by Governor Steve Bullock as lieutenant governor, and then re-elected with Bullock that year.
As an elected official and as a candidate, you have to have your ear to the ground and you have to know what's important to people. And that's, frankly, what's guided me throughout my career in government, and it's served me very well.
Yet Cooney's family history is something other than politics. It stretches all the way back to the first registered cattle brand in the state of Montana. His great-grandfather, Philip Poindexter, was a rancher near Dillon starting in the 1870s and registered the Square and Compass brand. It's still used by a Dillon area ranch, and one of his great-grandfather's original branding irons is on display in a wooden case at the Department of Livestock across the street from the Capitol. His great-grandfather also donated the land in Dillon to establish what's now the University of Montana Western. His grandfather, who married Poindexter's daughter, came to Butte in the early 1900s and established a food brokerage where Cooney worked as a teenager. Cooney says he feels lucky to have grown up where and as he did.
Montana is our home, each and every one of us. Whether we've chosen Montana or Montana has chosen us, we've decided to live in Montana because of the incredible quality of life that we're fortunate enough to enjoy right here. When it comes right down to it, this campaign is about the Montana we choose to pass on to our kids and our grandkids.
Tomorrow we'll give you a closer look at the path that Republican Greg Gianforte took to get to Montana. In Helena, I'm Mike Dennison for MTN News.
The governor's race also has a Libertarian candidate, Lyman Bishop of Kalispell. And speaking of Mike Cooney, his campaign reports raising $910,000 in the past month, pushing his total for the summer and fall to $2.5 million. Cooney's Republican opponent, Greg Gianforte, will report his numbers later today. As of mid-September, Gianforte had outraised Cooney, but Cooney's campaign sees his fundraising surge as an indication the governor's race is tightening up. Recent polls have shown Gianforte with a single-digit lead over Cooney.